The Third Reich left a horrific mark on human history, committing unimaginable atrocities like the Holocaust and the mass extermination of millions of Poles, as well as barbaric brutalities in the occupied territories of the Soviet Union. However, beyond the well-known anti-Semitism, Nazi ideology also encompassed a deeply ingrained anti-feminism. What was the role of women in Nazi society? They were confined to domestic duties and raising children. It's shocking to learn that the Third Reich legalized marriages with fallen soldiers, and female activists from the League of German Girls voluntarily engaged in intimate relations with SS officers to produce racially pure children. What were German women taught in bride schools? And why did the Nazis seek to introduce polygamy, offering soldiers a second wife as a reward? Why did the Nazis so despise the new women of the 1920s? Their demands for women included wide hips and no earrings. How did the Nazis redefine the concept of love? And was every German woman obligated to bear a child for the Führer? Book and exhibition announcement. Before diving into these grim aspects, we want to share some exciting news. Our book, Intimate Rus, has made it onto the top list of the prestigious International Nonfiction Book Fair for Intellectual Literature. You can find it prominently displayed right at the entrance of the exhibition in Gostiny Dvor, running from November 30th to December 3rd. This event showcases the top new book releases across all genres, from fiction to popular science. If you can't attend the exhibition in person, don't worry. The online bookstore Chitai Garad has launched an online version of nonfiction featuring all the hot new releases from the fair. It presents books on a wide range of topics: history, psychology, medicine, ethnography, science comics, and much more. From ancient myths to the mysteries of the human brain. For your convenience, books are grouped on themed shelves: what you didn't know about the past, what's happening now, and books for tomorrow's plan. This promotion is valid until December 5th, and with the promo code HEIST25, you'll get a 25% discount until December 16th. Hurry and grab these hot new releases via the link in the description. The role of women in Nazi Germany. Kinder, Küche, Kirche. The role of women in Nazi Germany was strictly limited and revolved around the triad coined by Kaiser Wilhelm II: Kinder, Küche, Kirche, children, kitchen, church. A woman's primary duties were to maintain the home, please her husband, and bear children. As early as 1921, women were prohibited from holding state and party positions, as well as pursuing scientific careers. Hitler declared that 99% of political questions are not their concern. Later, all female doctors were dismissed because such a responsible matter as the nation's health cannot be entrusted to women. The same fate befell female judges and lawyers, and the ranks of female educators significantly dwindled. Higher education for women also came under prohibition. This discrimination was justified simply: why should a woman work if her husband could support her? Nevertheless, some types of work remained available: saleswoman, housekeeper, or agricultural labor. These professions were considered typically female, although any work distracted a woman from her main mission, serving her husband and bearing children. Hitler even planned that only after marriage would a woman be considered a full citizen, but he did not live to implement this. To feminists, the authorities declared that while men and women were equal, they were not identical. Marriages and ideology, from Reichsmarks to Domina, newlyweds received substantial payments, up to 1,000 Reichsmarks, if the wife quit her job. After marriage, unmarried women and bachelors were declared abnormal and subjected to special measures. The Third Reich romance is well illustrated by a typical advertisement from a Munich newspaper. 52-year-old Aryan doctor, Battle of Tannenberg veteran, seeks for the purpose of lawful marriage and male offspring, a young Aryan girl without pretensions, ready for hard physical labor, domestic, with wide hips, no earrings, dowry optional. The Nazis, later condemned by the Nuremberg Tribunal, planned to treat the inhabitants of occupied territories, including the USSR, as redskins. That is, to liberate the lands from them and populate them with new, Aryan families. This misanthropic idea did not bother newspapers, which wrote, "A German mother of many children should occupy as honorable a place in the national community as a frontline hero." In the Third Reich, love ceased to be linked to marriage. Relationships between men and women implied no romance, but were meant to serve Nazi goals. Every family was to have at least 4 children. Society actively promoted the slogan, "A gift to the Führer." Those who did not procreate were considered deserters. In 1937, a punitive tax was introduced for childless couples who had been married for more than 5 years. Propaganda was so effective that it led to monstrous cases. For example, one German woman exaggerated her age by 16 years to marry an SS officer. Another, unable to obtain a marriage permit due to infertility, began stealing children and claiming them as her own. She was caught at a train station attempting to abduct her 4th child. Racial purity and marital restrictions. The Nazis made radical changes to the selection of spouses. From then on, girls chose fiancé not out of affection or material gain, but based on so-called racial purity, an idea condemned by humanity after the Soviet Union's victory over the Third Reich. The state strictly controlled this process. Marrying a Jew could lead to a concentration camp. To confirm racial purity, a large-scale copying of German church registers was conducted in 1933. A special bureau for blood relations was established within the Ministry of Interior, which conducted examinations of Aryan origin. Those wishing to marry also had to confirm the absence of genetic diseases by obtaining a certificate of marriage. Fitness. The prohibitions were so strict that even the Nazis themselves faced them. For instance, myopia could prevent one from obtaining a marriage permit with an SS officer. Obtaining a marriage permit with an SS officer was particularly difficult, as the marriage of SS members was considered a matter of state importance, and spouses were selected with extreme rigor. There was a separate order. SS members were only allowed to marry from the age of 25, and their engagement period was longer than usual to encourage the birth of premarital children. Later, brides for SS men began to be prepared at the state level. Special courses were established throughout the country. To become a certified bride, one had to prove her lineage, the absence of genetic or mental illnesses, even among close relatives. Appearance was important. Blue-eyed and green-eyed blondes were primarily selected, although chestnut hair was permitted, with a minimum height of 180 centimeters. Nazism against the new women. The Nazis, as mentioned, had no tolerance for feminists. Female emancipation in Germany emerged in the 1920s. These were uninhibited, fashionable girls with short haircuts, bright lipstick, who had abandoned corsets and long dresses, or even wore men's trousers, dancing the popular Charleston at parties. Think of their American counterparts from The Great Gatsby. Now, such attire was forbidden. Modest skirts below the knees, no trousers, all buttons fastened were required. Makeup was prohibited. A flawless Aryan bride was also forbidden to talk much or interfere in men's conversations, especially about politics or science. Every potential SS bride had to be photographed in a swimsuit for her personal file. At that time, this was perceived as a nude photograph. These photographs were carefully reviewed by officials when deciding whether to grant marriage permission. Bride schools and Lebensborn. In bride schools, women were taught for 6 weeks. As you can imagine, they were taught homemaking, gardening, cooking, and childcare. Much attention was paid to physical education, as they were expected to bear healthy offspring in the future. Ideal brides studied folklore, German songs, and fairy tales. Upon completion of bride school, girls received certificates. If such a certificate was not issued to a graduate, she was strictly forbidden to marry. The bride school certificate was a guarantee of well-being. Now, a girl could marry a high-ranking man, and brides with diplomas were in high demand. The resurrection of the German race, according to Nazi criminals, was to be achieved through regular mating with highly moral SS men. The Nazi propaganda machine so thoroughly brainwashed young women from the League of German Girls, the female counterpart of the Hitler Youth, that they consciously met with complete strangers, SS officers, for a night to become pregnant and give the Führer racially pure children. For these purposes, girls with Aryan features were selected, blue-eyed and fair-haired, with long legs and wide hips. To be honored with such a questionable distinction, girls had to confirm the purity of their blood dating back to 1800, undergo a medical examination, and prove the absence of genetic diseases in their families. As part of the Lebensborn program, special homes were established where girls could live throughout their pregnancies and for several weeks after childbirth. Staff helped them conceal their pregnancies and took the children after birth. The children then became state property. When it was decided that this method produced too few super children, the Nazis decided to Germanize Slavs. Suitable children with light hair and blue eyes were taken from their parents and abducted from Poland, Slovenia, Czechoslovakia, and the USSR. At the Nuremberg trials, it was revealed that between 5 and 50,000 children from the USSR were taken from their parents and transported to Lebensborn. Upon arrival, the children were meticulously examined. Those who did not meet the key criteria were sent to concentration camps, while those who fit the Aryan standards were sent to re-education camps. There they were given different names, forced to forget their parents and their own names, and exposed to ultraviolet light to make their hair even lighter. Those who resisted re-education were killed. The rest were sent for adoption. Most of the adopted children never returned because many were too young and had already forgotten their parents, and the Lebensborn records were destroyed by the leadership after the Nazi defeat by Soviet forces. The ideal wife and polygamy. So we've discussed the ideal bride, but what was the ideal wife supposed to be like? Her conversations also revolved around household matters, with no mention of politics or science. She, of course, was to please her husband in everything, have at least 4 children. She was ready to sacrifice herself for the nation at any moment, always modest and reserved, modestly dressed, and wore no makeup. And most importantly, she did not envy her husband's affairs and encourage the increase of his offspring on the side. Yes, you heard that right. Gerda Bormann can serve as an example of the ideal Nazi Frau. She married him at 19, bore him 10 children, and patiently endured Bormann's cruel beatings of her and their children when he was intoxicated. When she learned that her husband had a mistress, actress Mania Benz, she decided that this was how it should be, especially if the mistress bore her husband a child. In Gerda's opinion, she and the mistress should substitute for each other during pregnancy so that her husband would always be content. Gerda believed that a man should have 2 to 4 wives, each of whom should bear him at least 4 children. Such was the Aryan morality, the fate of unmarried women, and the procreation order. The Third Reich showed no mercy to those who failed to marry. From 1939, all unmarried German women under 25 were compelled to work for the benefit of the country and the party. They had no choice of work. It was mostly low-skilled physical labor in agriculture or domestic service in large families. This was considered truly fortunate and not available to everyone. Girls from higher social strata were sent to such jobs, while those from lower classes were taken to labor camps. They were given uniforms and assigned production quotas. The work could be anything, including the most arduous and dirty tasks, all for the benefit of the country and the party. In these so-called labor camps, they worked 20 hours a week. But these were mere trifles compared to what Nazi criminals did in concentration camps to Jews and representatives of other peoples. In their fight to increase the birth rate, Nazi criminals legalized marriages with the deceased. That is, one could enter into a perfectly legal marriage with a soldier who had fallen on the front line if someone could confirm that he had once intended to marry that woman. But even this did not satisfy the criminals leading the Third Reich. An SS order was issued, immediately dubbed the Procreation Order. It proposed to break free from bourgeois morality and allow the birth of illegitimate children from SS members. A woman getting pregnant by a soldier going to war was made almost a religious event. That is, an SS member was granted complete freedom in his intimate life. And these illegitimate children were welcomed with open arms in Lebensborn. At the Nuremberg trials, it was revealed that the Nazi leadership planned to obligate all German women under 35 to bear 4 children by racially impeccable men. To achieve this, all married men were to be declared free. They even coined the term domina. This was to be the name for the first wife, who would still have certain advantages. The second wife, according to party bigwigs, was to be something like the highest reward for warriors, but not for everyone. Only for those who had received the Golden or Knight's Cross or the Iron Cross First Class. The idea was that war and love are inseparably linked. If a warrior goes to war, he has the right to love unconditionally, and burghers should be content with what is left.